We're good. Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our last day of BFA Artist Talks here in the Western Gallery. Bittersweet to me that we're coming to an end, but we're ending with two really fantastic artists today. So kudos to you for joining us with Amanda today. And we're also going to be chatting with Lily here next. So please do stick on for Lily's as well. But my name is Tammy Landis. I am museum educator and curator here at the Western Gallery at Western Washington University. And we are sitting in the gallery space of the exhibition Material Mind, which is the 2021 BFA exhibition showcasing the works of 12 artists. And we've been going through and doing artist talks for each of these artists. And we have two left today, and I'm really excited to talk through each of these. So just a few logistics. Some of you already know as you've been listening in and participating. Amanda and I will be chatting for about 20 minutes or so. And we'd like to reserve the last 10 minutes of this talk for any questions or comments that you all might have. So if you are listening in on Zoom, please go ahead and use that Q&A box. It's on the bottom right of your screen. And just plug in some comments. You can praise Amanda for the work that they've done, that they've accomplished. It's really stunning. And, ask some questions because it's really significant to have Amanda here with us. And we want to make sure we can get some questions and get some live feedback. So please utilize that. And we'll get to those towards the end of the talk. But let's go ahead and get started. So I'm sitting here with Amanda Jenkinson. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're on the other side of your BFA work is completed. It's installed. It's twirling and hanging literally behind us.
Kind of very creepily, as some might say.
Yeah.
They're just hanging along. And they're doing their thing.
We'll get to that. Eerie and suspended, I know, is something that disturbing. These composite pieces is something that you were interested in chatting about. So it's perfect that there's a little bit of movement right now.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting read because I always thought that they were just cute, but then a lot of people started coming in and saying that it's like weird and it's creepy, and then. During our final critique, a lot of people were saying just like the shadows. I know Lily was saying the shadows were like weirdly hanging and like kind of like a creepy haunting thing. But I think it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get into it because I think your display and how it's installed adds a completely different element to your work. Like each of these three pieces have something to say on their own, sitting on top of a pedestal, but you have them hanging. And what that does in this whole space is really significant. But to help out our virtual audience, why don't you just give us a little bit of a description of what is sitting behind us? Tell us about the materials and maybe if you want to share, how you put these together. And then we'll go from there into some themes and some other aspects of your work.
Yeah, it was really fun putting them together. I had to do kind of a structural armature before I added foam and then like a layer of fleece. And then after adding fleece and stuff onto the head, I would keep adding more and more different fiber aspects. And then once I felt that was finished, I would go into days and days of trying to make patterns for the bodies, which was harder than expected. And going through a lot of trial and error processes over and over again. And then finally coming to the finished pieces that we see before us. And then finding the doll heads was a chore in and of itself. And I would go through like different thrifting stores and trying to find like the perfect faces to break apart and then cut their eyes out and then fill them in with random little paint and stuff to make them shine. And I think that was probably the most fun part of the process for me is finding all of those old pieces and then knowing that they would be living a new life in something that I was creating. And that's pretty much what I have for process.
Yeah. So you're talking about how much you enjoyed going out and collecting these items, which kind of comes full circle to what these are all about, right? These pieces that you've created. I remember on the studio conversation we had virtually, you showed me an image of your desk and it had your collection of all the aesthetics that relate to this. And I don't know how you want to describe your collection of these plush dolls and you also had two-dimensional work, but it was all related to this aesthetic. So that idea of collecting is very integral to this body of work, because I know it's something that you're kind of expanding on. It's like the things you surround yourself, but then now you're taking it into your own hands and creating your own. So tell us a little bit about what you've collected and how that informs these pieces.
Yeah, I find a lot of like little things or just random stuff that I find appealing. And as you described the picture of my desk, it's kind of a lot.
Yeah.
And for some people it might be a little bit overwhelming, but I find a lot of comfort in the stuff that I collect. And I know I was doing a lot of research on how a lot of people find it a bit disturbing, like for somebody to be collecting a lot. And I kind of wanted to connect that to like porcelain doll collecting, which I find a lot of fascination in, just in the phenomenon of a lot of these older women trying to find and reconnect with their youth through these porcelain dolls. And I happen to know a few people in my life that had these passion for these kinds of dolls. And I kind of connected to that in a lot of different ways, because I end up collecting a lot of things that maybe some people would find juvenile or naive, even if it's just something that brings me great joy. I like bright colors. I'm wearing bright colors right now. And I like having them surround me. And creating art out of that, I like to just make it as maximalist as possible, just to be very visually like boom. It's really fun.
Yeah, I think something I want to expand on a bit more, you're kind of just sharing about this. And I remember writing down a quote from you. Creating these, you wanted to experience things for the first time again, talking about your childhood and specifically the ages of 6 to 15. You were like immersed in this aesthetic and collecting these things. And then I think I remember you saying, once you hit 15, it was kind of like you hit it a little bit. You're like, that's not cool, or like, that's not what people are doing. And so recreating this work and bringing it back to significance in your life, it's like you're relishing what you missed or felt like what you kind of dismissed a little bit. Correct me if I'm wrong, but tell us a little bit about that, right? Like this childlike perspective you want to bring back and just be like, this is okay. This is what I enjoy. So I'm going to create work about what I'm passionate about.
Yeah, when you're young, you're always experiencing new things and everything looks new. And then when you start to get older, you face a lot of societal pressure to conform. And you kind of like, I know that in my personal experience, I kind of lost myself. I didn't really express myself a lot. I wore a lot of dark colors. Just because I thought it was cool, I wanted to be like grungy and like edgy. And then coming back and then like around when I started college, it was like, okay, why don't I enjoy the things I used to? I had a lot of introspection to wade through. And I realized that I love having, like, I miss a lot of my old toys. I miss a lot of the old plushies that I got rid of. And going through that collection process again, it's kind of a little bit out of control, but it's something that I enjoy. And I have a lot of things that I never knew that I wanted when I was younger, but now I have, and it makes me happy.
So now that these 3 pieces behind us are completed, when you're engaging with them and seeing them now, like, where does it take you? Like when you see your completed installation, like, how does that feel for you?
It feels, I feel incredible to have the opportunity to have stuff in an actual gallery. But I guess I feel accomplished in having actually made something with my hands that I feel so connected to. I do a lot of drawing and painting, and I guess I've been drawing for so long that I don't really feel connection to what I'm doing anymore. And I'm kind of relearning to do that, because after creating these, I'm like, wow, I kind of really want to go back to drawing. But like, I poured a lot of heart and soul into making these, and it feels good to know that they're finished and that at the end of the day or at the end of the gallery exhibition, I can take them home and they'll be part of the rest of my collection.
Yeah, I love that. Like it started with a collection, but then you've created your own forms. Like you can't go buy forms that look like these composite bears dolls, right? Like these are completely unique and completely your own. So it's amazing to see how you've taken the things that you've collected and created these composite soft sculptures. So Amanda just shared that you started the program, and historically you've been doing two-dimensional work, painting and drawing. And I think we have a slide of one of Amanda's sketches for one of these figures, and it shows the masterful skill you are at illustrating, to say the least. I mean, this is just like a sketch to you, which is amazing. So let's talk about how the BFA year evolved for you, because you started probably thinking you were going to do something two-dimensional, but now we're sitting in the gallery and you made sculptures. These are not two-dimensional.
Yeah.
Right? So break that down for us a little bit. Tell us about your BFA year and how your work evolved from a two-dimensional practice to now three-dimensional.
Yeah, in the summer before my BFA year, I was already trying to brainstorm what I would be doing. And I knew from the beginning that I wanted to branch out from just a 2D space. And so I thought that I would try doing paintings with a lot of 3D elements added onto it. And then that kind of slowly transformed into cutting out shapes and then putting stuff onto those shapes and then maybe putting them into like a landscape where they would live. And then I hit kind of a hard point at the end of fall quarter where I really didn't know what I wanted to do anymore. I wasn't enjoying what I was doing. And the project that I was planning on finishing in order to make it to the B Gallery exhibition in winter quarter was kind of falling apart as I was making it. So I decided to just kind of gather up whatever nonsense I could find in my drawers and put them all together. And what ended up happening was I just kind of spat out a bear, and that is what is sitting over here behind me.
The smaller one, which Chris, I think they're the last slides. If you want to go to those, you can show details. So those were that was the first piece that you made at the end of fall quarter.
Yeah, okay. The end of fall quarter into the very beginning of winter quarter is when I finished it. And at that point, I also still didn't know what I wanted to do for the actual end gallery Western exhibition. I was just again planning on doing paintings, and then I started gathering materials for that, and then I realized I wasn't really having fun doing that. I had so much fun doing the bear, just kind of like letting loose and not even caring about what I was doing. And then I realized, well, maybe what if I did a bigger one? And that was when I started to actually have fun with creating and making these big plush. And then the rabbit came out, and then I did the cat dog over there in the corner, and that's how that happened.
And would you say, so Amanda mentioned the B Gallery, which is a student-run gallery that's adjacent to the Western Gallery here in the Fine Arts Building, run by art students, which is a great space. I mean, there's shows that change like every 2 weeks, and the students get to go through even that process of installing. It's a smaller space, but still a great step. And so I remember coming across your first piece in the B Gallery, but I'd love for you to describe how it was displayed there. Because it really stood out to me. I gravitated right towards it.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier the piece that was kind of falling apart as I was making it. That was supposed to be a mobile, and I was actually intending for this bear to be a mobile as well, but it ended up just kind of turning into a plush. So what I had done was put a hook in top, intending for it to be a mobile. And when it came around to how I wanted to be that piece to be exhibited, I realized that, well, it could sit down, but I also already have a hook built into the top of it. I could try hanging it. And so we came up with the idea to hang it above a pedestal, which kind of made it look more complete. And I ended up really liking that. I liked it so much that that's what I ended up doing for this. And incorporating a hook on top of each one so that if I wanted the option to hang it, then I could do that. And it ended up turning out the way I wanted it to. So.
Yeah, it's very striking, very successful, eerie, because they're not just these stationary dolls sitting down, which is how we typically see them on a bed, on a chair, on a shelf, you have them suspended, and it like breathes a different life into these objects. And again, brings them into an isolated display versus where you're used to seeing a collection of these types of objects. So I think one could spend a lot of time walking around and engaging with these, and the little bit of eerie movement that happens, I think is really fantastic. So I think it's a really successful display. A lot of people have come up to me and asked about it. Like, this display is amazing. I love it. And yeah, really drawn to it. So I think it's been a really huge success. And then you painted the backgrounds of the wall, you know, to kind of get away from just the stark white. What was your motivation of painting the backgrounds?
I guess I thought I wanted a bit more of a personal space for these to exist in.
Yeah.
And a kind of a framing mechanism for them, because I know that they are a bit small, and a way for like something larger, a big block of color to attract attention. But I mean, going back to my first point, something more personal. And I thought that maybe stark white walls would make it look too sterile. So that's how I ended up deciding to paint the walls.
Yeah, it's very playful. And I'm not going to say it's childlike, but it gives you a sense of play and fun. And I think just the nature of them being stuffed dolls, stuffed bears, stuffed animals, you think of a childhood lens, but then you take a look closer and the faces are hollowed out, the eyes are obstructed, right? There's distortions here and there. So you're like, okay, this is not just something I'd give to my toddler. Like, these are very, they're crafted meticulously by you. And I know some of the detail images that Chris has shown some of this intricate detail that Amanda has gone through. So we have a question from the audience. So Chris, if you could read that out, we'd love to engage with the question from the audience. Thank you.
Sure. Beautiful craftsmanship. Do you think you're going to stay with this scale or move toward larger pieces, or will you move the other way towards smaller figures?
I think that making something smaller and more, I guess, intricate is what I'm normally inclined to do. I did want to kind of get out of my comfort zone, making a larger piece, like the rabbit here. And I think I would like to do more large ones in the future. I think I have a method down and I'd like to expand upon it. But for the time being, I think doing smaller ones is probably what I'm more geared to do. It's just more fun. It's less stress finishing a bigger piece. But yeah, I guess if I had time to do a larger one in the future, then I would definitely like to do it again.
Right. Well, what's the BFA year without stress? So you had to push yourself, right?
Yeah.
And we were talking about this before Amanda's interview. We were chatting, right, about the BFA year in general is a year-long program. And I would say it's not meant to be a year that you just continue doing what you know really well and just continue and feel safe and comfortable. I think you need to push yourself in the year-long program, because you have the resources, you have a committee that's guiding you, you have all different departments, you know, and for you, you were able to work in sculpture and fibers that you previously hadn't done before. So I think taking a step and experimenting some has created, at least from my experience on this side of things, some really fantastic bodies of work. And yours is an example of that. You could have just stuck with two-dimensional work, but you decided to push yourself and do something three-dimensionally. So along that line, Amanda, what do you want to do next? Are you interested in getting an MFA? Are you going to take a break? Do you want to go work at a library, do something, you know, what's next for you?
I thought that it would be fun to maybe, if in the future I ever had a chance to do an MFA, I'd probably take the opportunity, especially if I didn't have any specific direction that I was going. But otherwise, I plan to find a way to make a living off of my own art, or find some kind of museum work maybe, or working as like a studio assistant, or maybe even having my own studio with my own assistant.
Yeah. Do you want to stay in Washington, Bellingham, or?
I love Washington. I do.
Okay.
I would like to stay on the West Coast if possible. Probably no souther, no more south than like Oregon.
Yeah.
But I do feel home up here.
Yeah, that's great. So something I realized we didn't get to are the titles of these works and how you came to those titles. And I think the title of the smaller one was what it originally was in the B Gallery, or did it change? But could you describe the titles and their significance?
Yeah, this one is Dear, The rabbit is precious and the cat dog is beloved. Funny story, when I was trying to name this bear, I really didn't know what I wanted to name it. And I was like, what happens if I smashed the words doll and bear together? And I was like, well, dear is a word. And I guess it means something that's you hold dear to your heart. And that kind of went along with the message that I was trying to portray with these pieces. So I kind of followed along with the same theme, naming the rabbit precious, because a lot of people find their sentiment in objects very precious to them. And then same with the cat dog beloved, like I hold this to me beloved, like and that's just how it turned out.
Yeah, no, I think it's just significant. Sometimes people skip over titles, don't recognize their importance, but I think yours are, they speak to you and your work. So I wanted to make sure we address that. I believe we have another question. Chris, if you could read that before we wrap up Amanda's interview.
Yes, it says, great creativity and use of resources. How many trips to thrift stores did it take to compile all of the material?
Well, not as many as you'd expect. I would, especially Value Village, they have like big bins of just dolls. Like there's just one like collector section of, and there's so many porcelain dolls over there. But probably about 5 before I found the ones that I wanted and the ones that I felt like I could handle in these pieces. I would try to find different like skin colors or different sizes to have a little bit of variety, but it didn't take a lot actually. So just a few trips to the thrift store.
And you got the collector's eye. You've been looking at this stuff for a while, so like you can hone in right away.
I kind of knew exactly what face shapes I wanted when I went thrifting. So if there was one that I just didn't vibe with, then I wouldn't pick it up. So
great. So my closing question for you. When people come into the gallery and they come experience your work in this installation, what do you hope that they get out of your work? Seeing these pieces, walking around them at a distance, coming close. What are your hopes they walk away thinking or feeling?
Well, what I hope people walk away with is probably not what people walk away with, because a lot of people think they are a bit creepy, but I'd like people to connect with them on the same level that I do. I guess to connect with them in the same passionate way that they would maybe connect with something sentimental of their own. I wish people could come up and like hold them and like, carry them around, because I really enjoyed kind of like carrying them through campus and bringing them here. And I guess the way I connect with them is a lot different than other people because I made them and they are based on things that I'm passionate about. But even if they do think that they're creepy, that's fine because the message that I'm trying to portray with these is maybe, I guess, along that sentiment. Yeah,
absolutely. I love how you were describing how it's powerful to hold them. I definitely want to touch them, and there's so many material textures. And like just to feel the craftsmanship of how you've structured everything, I'm so curious about. But as they're suspended, it's like you kind of want to give them their distance. But it's interesting, maybe in the future, you can have it in an interactive way, or I don't know. I think tactile material touch could be a really significant part of your work. And I mean, it already is visually very successful. But we actually need to wrap up our interview. Amanda, this has been great, and I really appreciate the time you've spent, unraveling this a bit and being honest and sharing more about your work and your purpose and your interests. And congratulations again.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here and talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you haven't done so already, listen in to Lily's talk next. Thanks for being here to support Amanda and the BFA artists.